about some controversial things, but interesting things as well. Parshas Vayechi. Let's give an example. It says by Avraham Avinu. When Avraham Avinu reached the point in his life when he was going to pass away. So it says, it brings down in the Chumash that Avraham, it says as follows, these were the years of Avraham, he was 175 years old. Vayigva means he expired. Vayomos means he died. Avram B'Seva Tova, old age. Avram died. Sarah died. By Yitzchak it says Yitzchak died at 180 years old. It uses the term, it uses the term and he died. By Yaakov Avinu it says Vayechal Yaakov Letzavos Esponov. Yaakov finished instructing his children. Vayesaf Raglav El Amita, he gathered his feet on the bed. Vayikva, he expired. Vayosaf El Amov, and he was gathered back to his people, which means his neshama went back to Shemayim. What word is missing?
Died.
It doesn't say he died. And the word Vayomoth in Sefer Bereshis is written 100 times almost. In Bereshis itself, it says, and they lived so many years, they had children, men and boys and girls, they died. It says, Vayomos, Vayomos, Vayomos. But Yaakov leaves it out. Leads the Gemara in Tainus to say, Omar Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan, after a whole discussion, they asked him what was said in the Beis Medrash today. Omar Rav Yochanan, Yaakov lo meis. Yaakov didn't die. Because the Torah doesn't say he died. Omar le Rav Nachman le Rav Yitzchak. So Rav Nachman said to Rav Yitzchak, "Ay v'chibi chveisaf Esav daya." What do you mean? They gave a eulogy on a live person? That's silly. V'chotu chantaya, and they embalmed a live person. I mean, what, you think they buried a live person? So he says, "I'm darshaning the pasuk." It compares Yaakov to children. Makish hu lezaro. It connects him to his children. Ma zaro b'chaim afu b'chaim. Just like his children are alive, he's alive. That means a person lives their whole life, they have children. If their children follow in the Torah way,
he's alive.
He's alive because he continues on their legacy. They gathered around his bed and they said, Shema Yisrael, hear our father Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We're all Mita Shalema, your bed is complete. Nothing to worry about. Now, the Gemara asks, is there a way to cheat death? Everybody wants to cheat death. The Gemara says there's an antidote to death. You know what it is? Telling the truth. Emes. Which is interesting, because the two letters of emes is mate, is dead. You put the aleph before, you change the word. So if you want to change death to a different word, just add an aleph, which means truth. And the Chidah, famous Chidah, says the words emes liYaakov, if you mix up the letters, spells Yaakov lo meis. Yaakov did not die. The words emes liYaakov. Okay. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin brings down, Rava said, I believe there's no truth in the world. Rava says everybody lies. Until Rav Tivi said, if you give me all the money in the world, I'll never lie. So then he says, okay, now I believe there are true people. Then they talked about a place called Kushta. Have you ever heard of the place Kushta? Kushta in Aramaic means truth. It's a city where people live long, long lives and live forever because they had a rule in the city, no one is allowed to lie. And because no one lied, they lived a long life. One day they bring down a story, a woman was washing her hair. And the neighbor came knocking at the door, and she didn't want the neighbor to know that she was taking a shower or washing her hair or whatever it is. She said to her husband, tell the neighbor I'm not home. So he said, she's not home. The next day, 2 of her children died. So they did an investigation, and they found out the story. So they said, I understand why you did it, but you can't live in our city anymore, because we don't have people dying here. All of a sudden, 2 people died. Because of you, you lied. Out. You can't live in the city anymore. Okay? So we see the far-reaching effects of telling the truth. How important it is to tell the truth. That leads us to a problem, like always. It always leads us to a problem. What is the problem? In Perek Nun, Pasuk Tesvav, after Yaakov dies and Yaakov is buried, it says, Vayar achei Yosef ki mes aviyah. The brothers of Yosef saw that their father was now dead. Vayomu lu yistamenu Yosef. Yosef is going to hate us now. Nothing's going to stop him. V'hoshev yoshev lanu, and he's going to pay us back for all the bad we did to him. So they sent a message to Yosef. You should just know, Dad, before he died, said, forgive your brothers. They didn't mean to do all those terrible things.
Lie.
Now, was that the truth or was that a lie?
Lie.
It's a lie. And it brings us back to a problem. And the problem is that here we talk about these great tzaddikim, the shiftei koch, and they lie. It's a lie. No matter how you want to coach it, no matter how you want to paint it. Okay, you can argue that for the sake of peace, you're allowed to lie. No, you can argue that. Hashem's seal is emes, but Hashem's name is Sholom. Sholom Aleichem, Hashem's name is Sholom. A name is much more powerful than the seal. But the truth is, did Yaakov really know what happened? Maybe yes, maybe no. But do you believe Yaakov told the brothers? If he really wanted to tell it to anybody, who should he have said it to? Yosef. Yosef was there a few times. Yaakov called Yosef in to bury him in Israel and everything else. Yaakov could have said to Yosef, listen, I don't know what happened, but do me a favor, forgive whoever he has to forgive. Okay, so it's a lie. It gets us back to a problem where it's hard to understand. Now, there are midrashim. For example, this story, when Yosef was sold to Egypt, happened how many years ago? The story of Yosef being sold down to Egypt by the brothers, how long ago was that
17,
story? Wow.
34.
He was away 22 years,
Mm-hmm.
and Yaakov had lived in Egypt 17 years. That's 39 years, almost 40 years ago.
Oh, how old was he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do you remember people who hurt you 40 years ago that you haven't forgiven? This didn't happen yesterday. The brothers are worried that Yosef is going to take revenge on something that happened 40 years ago. That's a long time ago. It's not a lifetime, but it's a while. So there's a medrash. The medrash says that after they buried Yaakov in the Marat HaMachpelah, Yosef continued north and went to the city of Shechem. And he went to the pit that they had thrown him in, and he made a bracha. Baruch she'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. I thank you, Hashem, who made a miracle for me this day, in this place. Now, if you're the brothers and you say to yourself, it happened 40 years ago, and he still remembers the exact location, what does that say to you? Did he forget what happened?
No.
No, he remembered very, very well. So it's a problem. It's not an insurmountable problem, but it's a problem. He took this detour to Shechem. The brothers were nervous. The Medrash asks, who did the brothers send to Yosef to give him this message? Who delivered the message? Your father said. You know what they say? Bilhah did.
Oh, yeah.
Because Bilhah was Yaakov's wife, and she raised Yosef because she was Rachel's servant. So she was like a mother. So if you're going to send a message with anyone, who's the best person to deliver such a message? Your mother. And even though Yosef's mother was Rachel, but the mother he knew for the last 80 years was Bilhah. So they say that he sent Bilhah. The Aznaim Torah talks about that you're allowed to deviate a little bit for the sake of peace, of shalom. But again, it raises the question, because my advice to people is, especially when we deal with marriage, is always tell the truth. As painful as it is, we can always deal with the truth. We can't deal with lies. When a person lies, it compromises the foundation of trust. You tell the truth, it's horrible, but we'll get over it. We can always deal with the truth. And we try to tell that to our children. We try to put that into our children. Okay, a few other things I want to share with you that are very, very fascinating. For example, look at Perek Pasuk Chav Dalet. Very interesting. It says, Vayomer Yosef el Echov. Yosef said to his, what does Echov mean?
Brother.
His brothers. When I die, Anochi Meis, I will die like everybody else. And Hashem is going to remember you, and they're going to eventually, the Jews are going to leave Egypt. What do I want from my brothers? They should make sure to take my bones out, my body out. Okay, let's think about this for a moment. Who did Yaakov ask to take his children? Right?
Yeah.
Yaakov asked his children.
Why he asked his brothers?
Yosef should have asked
children.
his children, Ephraim and Manasseh. They were big, they had families, they had children, they had grandchildren. That means, who do you ask such a favor from? Your brothers or your children?
Children.
Your children. So why did he ask his brothers? Ephraim and Manasseh were adults. At this point, it says that Yaakov saw Ephraim and Manasseh's children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
So they were mature adults, and they had political connections and everything. And eventually, in the end, who took him out was Moshe, because they couldn't lift him out of the Nile. But it's so strange that he asked his brothers. Listen to this answer. I'm going to give you two answers, fascinating answers. The first answer I saw was that Yosef said to the brothers, who was responsible for me being in Egypt in the first place?
Brother.
You guys. So you're responsible to take me out.
Wow.
Isn't that a fascinating answer?
Yeah.
You brought me here. You were the reason why I ended up here. So therefore, it's your responsibility to fix your mistake. Take me out.
He has absolutely right.
That's a fascinating answer. That's a fascinating answer. It had nothing to do with Ephraim and Manasseh. Had to do with the brothers.
Прекрасно.
Okay? Had to do with the brothers. That's a fascinating answer. These are questions people have never heard. People learned this parsha 50 years, 50 times, 100 times. They never hear these questions. What?
They were sending with Yaakov. He said to Yosef to take me out.
Right.
Why? Because he brought him.
That's right. Same thing. Something like that. Same thing. I came to see you.
And now you have to take me out.
Take me out. The other answer is also a very interesting answer. Let me tell you the psychology of the second answer. I do you a favor. Okay? I do you a favor, you say thank you. Because I did you a favor, you owe me. I may not say anything. If you come back to me and say, you did me a favor, how can I pay you back? I might say, forget about it. But the truth is that I did you a favor, and you feel like you owe me. So the Sifrei Musar say that if my favor is really a true favor, I will find a way for you to do a favor back to me so you don't have to feel that you owe me. That's the real favor. The real chesed is when I do you a favor and I give you an opportunity to give it back. I do you a favor, and then you call. You say, and then while we're talking, I say, I have a hole in my roof, and you say, well, I deal with contractors. Let me find the guy that fixed the hole. And I say, well, let me pay. He says, no, don't worry about it. That's the real favor, where I give you a chance to pay me back. So Yosef said to the brothers, all these years, I fed you, clothed you, housed you. I did you tremendous favors, and you owe me. I want to give you an opportunity to pay back. You are responsible to get me out of Egypt. You do that, we're even. So that's a chesed. That's true kindness.
And plus, he did the first, so they sinned. It's like
right. It's true kindness where you did someone a good deed and you give them a window to come back and do something in return. Tikkun. Now it's even.
It's a tikkun and shua
for
the sin they did.
Correct. Who would help out? So those are very interesting, fascinating answers. It says that they embalmed Yaakov. Now, I don't know what that means. Embalming today means you take out the blood and the organs. It doesn't mean that they did that for Yaakov. According to some opinions, they just wrapped him very tight so air could not get to the body. But the Oznaim LaTorah says something very interesting. He says, Why did Joseph do that? Why did Joseph even pretend to embalm his father? He says his father asked for it. Because Yaakov said to Yosef, I know my body is not going to decompose. When a tzaddik dies, his body stays the same. The Egyptians will say, I'm a god, and they'll worship me. So therefore, embalm me. Take the cloth, wrap me around, make me a mummy, do what you have to do. Make it look that my body was protected by natural means because of your science. Right. Mummify me, make me like the science. He says that. He says, Shehoya misyara, he was afraid. Shema yasu osu amisim avodah zorah kishayiru, when they see she'em masriach, that he's not decomposing. So, it's so interesting that Yaakov Avinu, as it was, he didn't want to be buried in Egypt because he didn't want them to make him into a god. He says, fake it. The normal burial, the normal process, fake it. I don't want them making me a god. That was something that was very interesting. Next, also interesting, it says that when Yaakov died, Vayipel Yosef al pnei Aviv, Yosef fell on his father's face, and he cried and he kissed him. So the first question they ask is, was Yosef the only one who fell on his face and hugged his father and kissed him? Did the other brothers do it? It doesn't say. So the Shari Aaron brings down, Hu adin l'chol b'nei Yaakov, all the children did that. All the children hugged their father and said goodbye and kissed him. He has a debate here, are you allowed to kiss a dead person? From here it seems you're allowed to, but again, Yaakov lo meis, maybe Yaakov didn't, we don't do that today. We don't, what?
Yirchot Avinu doesn't allow to kiss a dead person.
No, we don't. We don't do that today. But he asks, why does the Torah only say Yosef fell on his face and hugged his father? He says because Hashem said that would happen. Hashem said to Yaakov, Yosef will put his hand on your eyes. And Rashi says when you die, it'll be Yosef who will close your eyes. So because Yaakov was told, Yosef will close your eyes, when he died, it only says Yosef fell on his father and closed his eyes. So it was to fulfill the nevuah of what was said. And that nevuah was, that Hashem promised Yaakov. So therefore, that's why it says it. But it's interesting that these psukim are very carefully crafted. Even though it's a story, right? It's just a story here. The wording and if you examine it a little bit more closely, where in schools we don't seem to be taught how to do that, it seems to be very fascinating. Okay, let's go on one other point. Eventually the brothers come to Yosef, whether it's true or not, and they said, Dad said, forgive us. Okay. God said, don't punish us. Don't take revenge. What does Yosef say? Yosef again repeats his line. What's his line?
I'm not the God.
What?
Yosef said, I'm not the God.
Yosef said, you didn't send me here.
That's-
This was God's plan. We're all pawns on a chessboard, and God is playing the game of chess. So you didn't do anything. Okay. Let's understand this realistically speaking. First of all, did the brothers ever say to Yosef, Yosef, looking back, clearly we were wrong. We're sorry.
No.
Never said that. All the 40 years, even though Yosef had dreams, and even though it worked out the way it did, and even though he supported them, the brothers, till their dying day, if you would have asked them, you sold your brother into slavery, he could have died, do you feel you were wrong? What was their answer? No, we were right. Yeah, they never ever said to Yosef,
Sorry.
we were wrong, forgive us. Yosef, did he ever say to the brothers, I forgive you? No. Never said those words. Why should he? They never asked forgiveness. I'm not going to forgive someone if he doesn't ask. So Reb Moshe Feinstein and others say that these brothers never made peace. The brother says, don't take revenge. Joseph says, I'm not God. But that was not a discussion about peace. And therefore, 10 of the greatest tzaddikim died. The Asarei Harugei Malchus for to forgive them. Rav Moshe says that after a din Torah, he would insist that the parties ask forgiveness. If I did anything wrong, if I ever said anything to hurt you, I ask forgiveness. I forgive you. They would do something like that. But it's so unusual because, let's say I rob your house. And I say to you, I robbed your house. And you say, well, obviously God wanted my house to be robbed. That's fantastic. Can I go home now? No, I got to give back what I stole, and I can go to jail. I can't go to court and the judge says, you murdered someone, and I say, well, Your Honor, God runs the world. If I murdered the guy, must be God wanted him dead. Doesn't work that way. It's like crazy stuff. So when the brothers say, Dad said, don't punish us, and Yosef said, well, it wasn't my plan, it was God's plan, and we're all part of God's plan. What? That doesn't do anything. That doesn't accomplish anything. That doesn't make any sense. What was being said over here? We have a similar thing with David HaMelech. David HaMelech, King David, was running away from his son Avshalom. And as he was running away, there was this gentleman, Shimi ben Gera. And he went on top of a mountain and he threw rocks down on David. And he cursed him. He says, you're a Moabite. You're not even Jewish. You're a murderer. You're a rapist. He started cursing the guy. So Yoav, David's general, says, enough! I don't want to listen to this dog. He calls him a dog. What is it, this dog? I'm going to take my sword and separate his head from his shoulders. And David says, leave him alone. He's a messenger from God. Doesn't make any sense. Really? I can rebel against the king and pretend I'm a messenger from God? So the Meforshim, they explain as follows. Listen carefully. You are always responsible for your own actions. That's something today that is missing. You have no idea. I mean, maybe you do. A day, a kid in school tears up someone's papers. What did you do? I tore up his papers. Why? Because I wanted to. Do you feel responsible? No. It's not your fault? No, it's not my fault. The other kid started first. He made fun of me. That means we talk about owning it, taking responsibility. Nobody takes responsibility. Why did you come late to work today? The bus that I normally take came early. I missed the bus. Okay. So what are you going to do about that? It's not my fault. I missed the bus. The bus came early. It's the bus driver was early. It's his fault. Really? It's not your fault. It's not my fault. Nobody takes responsibility. Literally, nobody takes responsibility. Nobody says you're right. I don't know what to do because I always take this bus. I rely on the schedule. Maybe I have to come earlier. Maybe I don't know. I have to think how to resolve this problem. But it's my problem. I'll take care of it. Nobody does that. They say when something goes wrong, the person with the biggest smile has someone else to blame. That's why he's smiling. That's why he's smiling. So the Meforshim say that when you do something wrong, you're responsible. When the brothers came to Yosef and says, don't take revenge, Yosef says, listen, it's God's plan. That's true. That doesn't let you off the hook. Yosef says, I'm waiting for those magic words. I am sorry. Please forgive us. Never came. Shimi ben Gera, David didn't let him off the hook. He didn't kill him on the spot. But before he died, what did he tell to Shlomo? Make sure this guy dies a violent death. Shlomo was conflicted. This guy was his Rebbe. Shimi ben Gera was his Rebbe. What did Shlomo do? He made a compromise. He says, as long as you live in the city of Jerusalem, no one will touch you. If you ever leave the city, you're a dead man. 2 years he lived in the city, no one bothered him. One day his mules ran away. Instead of sending someone else to find him, he went himself. He left the city. Shlomo says, you're a dead man. And he killed him. Had him killed. Even though it was his Rebbe. The Gemara says, because Shimi ben Gera lived those extra few years, he had a child. Who was his future children? Mordechai and Esther. Mordechai ben Yair, ben Shimi, ben Shaul, ben Kish. Mordechai and Esther came from Shimi. The guy David let live. Because he let him live, he had children, and those children gave birth to Mordechai and Esther. So David knew what he was doing. Did David forgive him? No. David said, he cursed me, it was God's plan. I got that. But he didn't say, I'm sorry. He's a dead man. That means the question is as follows. If you're the victim of a violent crime, what should be your attitude? Yosef was the victim of a violent crime. How did he come to grips with it? He could have said, life is unfair, and I hate this world, and I hate God. You know what he said? God has a plan, I don't know what it is. God has a plan for me, I'm sure I'm going to see good things. That's a victim talking to come to deal with his pain. That doesn't let the person who committed the crime off the hook. So they say the brothers never said we're sorry. They had to pay for their crimes. How, what, where, I don't know, but there was going to be an accounting for them. Yosef's answer was just how he dealt with the pain. David said, of course his words bother me. God calls me a murderer, God calls me a rapist. You don't think I have feelings? Of course I have feelings. God is sending me a message. I can't run away from God, I'm going to have to deal with it. But does that let him off the hook? No way. No way. He's going to have to answer for his crimes, and he did. He did answer for his crimes. Paid with his life. But that was on him. He had a chance to live in the city. You know, I think of Jerusalem. I could go and live in Jerusalem, I think, my whole life and never have to leave the city. I'd be a very happy man. You know, I think my wife would be thrilled if I told her we're moving to Yerushalayim. Maybe not now with the grandchildren, but once the grandchildren get older, I think that's where she'd want to go. But, you know, what can I tell you? You know, it's, he couldn't do it. Next. Yeah. Next, listen to this, also interesting. Listen to this. It says as follows. Yaakov lived in Egypt 17 years. Then it says, the days of Israel's death were coming. Normally a person only dies one day. You don't die 1,000 days. But they say that Yaakov asked that people should get sick. So he felt weaker and weaker and weaker, so he felt death was coming. So that's what it means, the days. That was a chesed, I got that. Then he arranges with Yosef to bury him in Egypt, and Yosef says yes. It was after those days, Yosef gets a message that his father is sick. So he goes to visit him with his 2 children, Ephraim and Menashe. What does it say? That Yaakov, when Yosef came, Vayischazek Yisrael, Yaakov strengthened himself and he sat up in bed. So the Dasa Keni Mibale Atos is a fascinating thing. He says, let's get this straight. Yaakov is sick. He's in bed. Have you ever visited someone in the hospital who's sick? Yeah. If they're not strong enough to sit up in bed, do you want them to sit up in bed? Not at all. Let them lay down in bed. Yes, Yosef is a king, and maybe Yaakov felt, I have to sit up for the king. But that wasn't what was being said. Why did Yaakov feel he had to sit up in bed? The Das Keni Mibali Atosos gives an answer out of left field. You gotta listen to this answer. He says, what was Yaakov's plan? Yaakov told Yosef, I want you to know that your 2 children, Ephraim and Menashe, they're going to be like my children. They're going to have a nachala, an inheritance equal to everybody else. Which means, if I have $12 million, it's not going to be divided 11 ways or 10 ways, it's going to be divided 14 ways. Ephraim and Menashe each are going to get $1 million. So you know what Yaakov said? If I'm going to divide money, I don't want my other children to say, oh, he was senile, he was sick, he was delirious, he didn't know what he was doing. So he sat up in bed and said, look, I know what I'm doing. I'm of sound mind and body. Figure this out. The Shvatim, you think Reuven, Yehuda, Levi, Dan, Naphtali are going to argue over money? He says everybody argues over money. You could be the Shvatim, the Shiftei Ka, the holy tribes of Israel. Comes to money, nobody is immune. Yaakov says, when it comes to money, I better sit up straight and make sure everybody knows I know exactly what I'm doing. Because I took Yosef, and I'm giving him a double portion, and not to Reuven. And people are going to complain, why did I do this? And I have to tell you, there's not a week go by that I don't get a phone call about some will or inheritance where families don't talk to each other. Brothers, sisters, they don't talk to each other for years because of the way the father divided up the portion. I tell people always to do everything fair. Everybody's equal, but not everybody is equal, and not everybody understands that. And then they think manipulation. You know why dad gave you more? Because you were always there taking care of him, and you filled his head with all these different lies. You manipulated. I'm contesting the will. Someone asked me the other day that there's a guy who's dying, and he has only one son, and he's leaving everything in his will to a tzedakah, to a charity. What can we do to change that? I said, well, giving to tzedakah is a nice thing. Yeah, but he's leaving nothing for his son. Is that right? I don't think that's right. Is the guy alive? Yes. Is he of sound mind? Yes. So why is he doing it? Ask him. I don't know why he's doing it. Leona Helmsley left, I think, $12 million to her dog. You think her dog appreciates it? Can I explain this? People do crazy things. But when it's their money, they do crazy things. It says, Hine, your father is sick. Hine is Gematria 60. Hamita, the bed, is 59. So the Gemara learns out from here that when you visit a sick person, how much of the illness do you take away? 1/60. So the Maharal says, when you take it away, you actually absorb into your body the illness. But 1/60 is batel, so it disappears. He says, but after he said that, you know what people stopped doing? They didn't go visit sick people anymore. You want to take someone's 1/60th of their Alzheimer's or their Parkinson's disease or cancer, God forbid? No, you don't want that in your body. So the Maharal says that's why the Gemara talks about all the rewards, that if you visit the sick, you'll have an olam haba, you'll live long life. He says they went into all these rewards, right, in order to encourage you to visit the sick. Okay, is it a mitzvah to be buried in Israel?
Yep.
Yes, no, it's a big debate. My wife wants to be buried in Israel. He's made it very clear to me she wants to be buried in Israel. Where exactly, I'm not sure.
Very expensive.
It is very expensive, and I heard that if you don't live there, they're not selling plots to you, even though I was at a funeral in Lakewood on Sunday, very long funeral of a relative of mine, and he was buried in Israel, Har HaZeisim. They opened up a whole new section for Americans on Har HaZeisim. People weren't buried in Har HaZeisim because it was a little bit dangerous, but I guess now security got a little bit better. People get buried in Har HaMenuchos. I mentioned to you Mrs. Faskowitz, Rachel Faskowitz got buried in Har HaMenuchos. She had a plot there. My wife and I looked at Sanhedria. Rabbi Vayechi Yosef is buried in Sanhedria, and other relatives we have are buried in Sanhedria.
You and your wife?
What's in
They're gonna bury them?
No, Rabbi, we're looking. My wife wants to buy plots in Israel.
It's in the city.
Why in
or it's
Israel,
out?
Rabbi?
Because that's what she wants. She wants to be buried
Are
in
you
Israel.
from Israel or where?
No,
No,
she wants to be buried in Eretz Yisrael.
It's-
Why? We'll see.
It's in the city or it's out of the...
What the
It's in the
kids,
city.
what the kids are saying?
What city?
We didn't ask the kids in Yerushalayim. It's
Ah,
expensive. It is
maybe
very
we should buy
expensive.
there
It is
too?
very, very expensive. What should I tell you? You know, when she talks to them, she asks them for 2 graves, like a 2-for-1 sale. You know, you get a chill every time she talks about 2-for-1. You know, I have to sleep with one eye open. You know, to make sure that she doesn't have any plans. You know, that she wants to go together.
But Rashi explains about Yaakov also.
So we
because,
see.
When it Hamitim...
Right. So the question is, that the mitzvah be buried in Israel? The short answer is Yaakov did not want to be buried in Egypt. He didn't want Makas Kinim, the lice. Or Israel, the land is kapara. They say if you get buried in Israel, the land itself is mechaper, forgives your averot. That's why we have a custom, when we bury someone in America, we sprinkle dirt from Israel. My father was in Israel. He bought bags of dirt from Kever Rocha. We have at home like 10 or 15 bags of Israeli earth from Kever Rocha.
Sand.
No, sand. But that's before Kever Rochel. Now is all cemented. You know, there's no dirt there anymore. But this was, he got this from there. Other people say that in Eretz Yisrael, you get up first for Tchiyat HaMesim, then in Chutz La'aretz, and in Chutz La'aretz you have to roll, there are tunnels, whatever it is.
That's what Yaakov...
Yeah, that's what he was saying. The Zohar says something very strange. The Zohar brings down a story of a guy who he opens up his front door and his neighbor is throwing his garbage on his front door. So he says to his neighbor, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I throw my garbage somewhere." He says, "Well, why my house? Throw it on your house." So the Zohar says, if you live in Israel, you can be buried in Israel.
Yeah.
But if you live in Chutz La'aretz, and then you want to be buried in Israel, it's like throwing your garbage in Israel, he says. That's what the Zohar writes. So the Zohar was not a believer.
Zohar is against it.
Yes, he's against it.
The Malachim come
Ah,
and beat him up.
You live
Yeah,
in-
the Zohar is against
you want
it.
to bury there.
The Zohar says you get buried where you live. End of story. But it seems everybody feels that it's a big zchut to be buried in Israel. There's no question about that. Which cemetery, this, that. But it is expensive. There's no question about that. You can get insurance
You
for
can't
it.
buy for the advance,
You can buy, yeah. They say that if you buy
but they're
it,
gonna keep it that space for
Yeah.
you after you buy it?
Kind
if you pay for it,
What they said if you buy what?
there's it's brought down that if you own a grave, it's a skula for arichat yomim.
What does
It means that it's a good sign for long life. Why? Because usually, when you
Better
own
like
something,
it?
you never need it. So a light burns out, you don't have a light bulb in the house. But there's 5 light bulbs you do have, that's not the same light bulb. So buy a grave, because when you own it, you never need it. That's what they say. But they bring down a story. Listen to this story. It's a very fascinating story. I'll tell you a few stories. They bring down a story that Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, the Brisker Rov, in 1915, the town of Brisk was overrun by the Germans. So he went to a small little town outside of Warsaw called Atvosk. And on the 21st day of Av, he got sick, took a turn for the worst, and he died. So the people of Atvosk wanted him buried there. The people of Brisk wanted him brought back to Brisk. The people of Warsaw said the funeral is going to be in Warsaw, so he should be buried in Warsaw. So they had a whole din Torah. And in the end, the Beis Din paskin that he should be buried in Warsaw, next to the Nitziv, who was the grandfather of his first wife. So he was married before, and the grandfather was the Nitziv. And he's buried right next to the Nitziv. I have a picture of his grave. When I was in Warsaw, I went to his grave, and I saw both the graves right next to each other. Then they bring down the story that Rav Mordechai Banet, the chief rabbi of Nikolsburg, was in the summer, he went to Carlsbad. They had these mineral baths. And there in Carlsbad, he died. And he was buried near Carlsbad in Liechtenstadt. And the people,
German?
what?
German?
It was near Germany. And the people of Nikolsburg wanted him dug up and moved to Nikolsburg. He was their rabbi. They wanted him in his community. So they went to the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer listened to all the opinions, and he wrote a tshuva that says they should rebury him in Nikolsburg. They had no right to bury him here. As he's about to sign the tshuva, his hand hits the bottle of ink, it spills all over the tshuva that he wrote. It's a little unusual, so he takes a day to think about it. That night, this Rabbi Banet appeared to the Chassam Sofer. He says, "You're right, I belonged in Nikolsburg. Why was I buried here? Because a few feet away is the body of a girl I was engaged to. But I broke the engagement without saying I'm sorry, without asking her forgiveness. So in Shemaim it was decreed that after I die, I have to be buried near her for at least 6 months. So please, rewrite the tshuva, but say that they cannot move me for 6 months." And he did, and they kept him there for 6 months, and then
He
they
came to his dream.
he came to his dream. He says, "Since a person's honor is a very serious matter, and I cause pain and embarrassment to the girl and her family, therefore I am being punished." And Reb Mordechai told the Chassam Sofer that the betrothed girl is buried right next to the grave where he is laying now, which he verified the next day. The Chassam Sofer allowed him to remain in that grave for 6 months before having the rabbi's body returned home. Life is strange. Things happen very, very strange. Okay? So, the Shari Aaron says that part of the benefits of being buried in Israel, for the first 12 months, the neshama comes back every Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. He says the people in Eretz Yisrael get up by Tchias HaMesim first. He says that you're saved a lot of the pain of the grave in Eretz Yisrael because the land acts as forgiveness, and the land forgives you for all your averos. So he says, so very, very interesting he has that. Okay, a few other thoughts. The Morat HaMachpelah. We went over this, but let's go over it again. The first person buried in the Morat HaMachpelah, besides Adam and Chava, they don't have markers. We'll talk about that in a moment. Who was the first person buried there? Sarah. How old was she? 127. Who was the next person buried there? Avraham. How old was he? 175. Who was the third person buried there? No. Rivka. She was 132. The next person to die was Rachel. She was 36. She was buried in Beit Lechem. The next person after Rivka buried in Morat HaMachpelah, who was next? Leah. She was 44. They asked a question. When they wanted to bury Yaakov, who tried to stop the burial? Esav. So when they buried Leah, why didn't Esav stop it? Why didn't Esav say, what are you doing? Yaakov, you get one, I get one. There's no Leah. So the answer was, Esav didn't mind Leah being buried there. Because he believed, who was his wife supposed to be? Leah. So he says, you didn't give her to me in my lifetime, I'll get her now, after she's dead. So he didn't care. He was very happy that Leah was being buried there. Also, Yitzchak was still alive. Esav behaved himself while his father was still alive. After Leah died, who was the next one buried in the Morat HaMachpelah? Yitzchak, 180. And who was the last one buried there? Yaakov, 147. I told you one medrash says Moshe and Tzipora were buried there. They were reburied there, but that's only a medrash. Adam and Chava buried there. Why are there no markers? So the Meforshim explained that had there been markers, the whole world would look at Hebron as their holy place. Because everybody traces their family to Adam and Chava. So by Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, that's the Jews. Avraham, Ishmael could say, we belong there. But after Yitzchak is there, they have no claim. Esav could say, well, Yitzchak, he's my father. But after Yaakov's buried there, there's no claim. So Adam and Chava, they're the ones who have this concept. And because they have this concept, that's why there's no marker. Something you said earlier is brought down in one of the Meforshim. Let me tell you what it is, okay? I didn't tell it to you at the time, but I wanted to tell it to you now. It says Paro knew, of the 70 languages, how many languages did Paro know? 69. He did not know Hebrew, Lashon Kodesh. Yosef knew all 70. So they asked the question, so what? Paro did not know one language. Why is that so terrible? Why is it so important to know Hebrew? So he answers, a leader must understand the language of everybody who lives in their borders. Because if you don't understand their language, you don't understand their thinking, their mentality, their culture. The Jews were settling in Egypt. The Jews were going to be millions of Jews. Not knowing their language was a major deficit to Paro. That's what you mentioned. The rabbi should be Bukharian. Why should he be Bukharian? A rabbi is a rabbi. Answer is, but if you want to understand the Bukharian mentality, you got to grow up there, you got to live there, you got to be from them. If you're not, you could be the greatest rabbi in the world from halacha, but you're still missing something. I don't know how much we believe that today, but that's what's brought down. Okay? By the way, a good rabbi, you have to listen to him. The Gemara says, even if he tells you your right hand is your left hand, and your left hand is your right hand. You know where they learned that out from? Yaakov. Because what did Yaakov do? He crossed his hands. And Yosef says, no, Dad, it's a mistake. And he says, no. My right hand is my left is my right. Who was the first person who taught his son that you have to listen to the rabbi, even if he says his left is his right and his right is his left? Was Yaakov. Yaakov taught us that message. It's not easy to do, because if the rabbi tells you something that goes against what you see with your own eyes, the rabbi says, this is not a chair, it's a table, you're going to question him. But the truth is, if he calls this a table, what is this? It's a table. That's the power of Chazal. That was the power of the Chachamim. It's because today, the institution of the rabbinate has lost respect. Trust me, if Rabbi Kiva Eger told you, this is a table, it's a table. If Rabbi Vayechi Yosef came in and says, I want a coffee served on my new table, you would serve coffee on his new table. It's because we have not given the institution of the rabbinate the kavod it deserves. And therefore, it's a problem. One last thought. I was at a funeral in Lakewood on Sunday. Thousands of people were there. All the Rosh Yeshivas were there. They spoke. 15 people spoke. It was for a gentleman named Kalman Krohn, my brother-in-law's brother. My brother-in-law, Pesach Krohn, his brother passed away. This week he's sitting shivering. This man, Kalman Krohn in Lakewood, would help poor people. He would raise money for poor people. And he raised over $15 million for poor people. People knew that he was giving out tzedakah money, so rich people would give him money and say, listen, I trust you. Just give out this money to whoever needs it. So people came to him and went to him. He tells a story. He was an interesting fellow. He tells a story that he was once in a cab in Israel. And the cab driver had an earring, I think in both ears or whatever it was. And this guy had a long beard with pace and everything. And he says to the cab driver, Achim anachnu, we're brothers. So the cab driver pulls over and says to him, we're not brothers. Who are you kidding? I'm a chiloni. I don't keep anything. I eat treif. I don't keep Shabbos. And you're an Orthodox Jew from America. We're not brothers. He says, no, we're brothers. My Rebbe told me we're brothers. He says, your Rebbe? Who's your Rebbe? He says, Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler taught me we're brothers. So this cab driver says, well, you're 1 in a million. He says, no, you're wrong. If we're brothers, we're 2 in a million. That's where it starts. And he got so caught up in this that he got from the Israeli government a list of all the soldiers that died since 1948, their names and their date of deaths. And he put it on a calendar. And he had all their yortzites. And he paid boys in Lakewood Yeshiva on the yortzeit of an Israeli soldier to learn Mishnah and say Kaddish. Now, many of these Israeli soldiers did not keep any Judaism. And he said, here's a soldier who died in 1948, wasn't religious. His children, maybe he didn't even have children. And if he had children, they're not religious. So who says Kaddish on his yortzeit? Nobody. But he died protecting the land of Israel. Now, this guy's from Lakewood Yeshiva. Nothing to do with Israel. He paid people that every year when this soldier's yortzeit came, they learned some Mishnah and they said Kaddish. Why? He's a Jew, but he's not religious. I don't care. Who's saying Kaddish for him? Nobody. I'm going to make sure someone says Kaddish for him. Why? He gave up his life so I could go visit Israel. But you're a yeshiva guy from Lakewood. It makes no difference who I am. That is amazing. Imagine having a list of thousands of names and making sure every soldier in Israel that died, there's a Kaddish being said for them.
So
Where? In Lakewood Yeshiva.
he was rich.
He raised money. He was as poor as anything, and he raised money. He raised money just to keep this going. He had a book with all this in there. He left instructions. I want nothing buried with me. No, normally you don't bury anything. That book, I want that in my coffin. And they did. They put it in the coffin.
Oh, he passed away.
The funeral was Sunday. He was buried in Israel in Har HaZeisim. So even though he didn't live in Israel, he is buried in Israel in Har HaZeisim. And the only thing in his coffin besides the shrouds, they put in this book of all the donations and everything else. They put it in
Why?
because that's what he wanted. He wanted to go up to Shemaim and say, "This is what I did with my life.
Mitzvah book.
This is my mitzvah book."
How old was he?
He was 71.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
He was young. He had cancer. He had a lot of
How he
difficulties.
raised the money?
You know what? He did it
Tzedakah
in
and so
stuck
on.
ways that you can't believe.
He was right.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
I don't know what to do about next week because it's